Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm a couple of weeks behind this story that you guys brought to my attention during one of my recent lives. Either New Glenn or Starship? I think it was Starship? I can't really remember. But I wanted to wait a couple weeks just so I could look up some additional info because it certainly has been a developing story. So today's video is going to be about everything I have learned so far about a massive piece of space debris that recently landed in Kenya. And I mean massive. It makes those batteries that went through that guy's roof in Florida look like a pebble. So on December 30th, 2024, at about 3 p.m. local time, the residents of the Mukuku village, which is southeast of Nairobi in Kenya, were shaken by a huge explosion. It came from a nearby thicket, and at the time, the explosion was so loud that the village thought they were under some kind of attack. Stephen Mangoka, a farmer in the village, told the BBC, "It sounded like a bomb. I was shocked. I started looking around, also wondering if they were gunshots. I rushed to the road to see if there had been an accident. Nothing. And that is when someone told me that something had fallen from the skies," which is just an insane thing to hear, but that someone was right, and what had fallen was this ring, roughly 8 feet or 2.5 meters in diameter and weighing some 1,100 pounds or 500 kilograms. Anne Kanuna, who told the BBC she owns the land where the object fell, said, "We found a big piece of metal that was very red, so we had to wait for it to cool before anyone could approach it," which is just crazy. I mean, it's one thing to have a meteorite the size of a kiwi explode in your driveway. It's another thing to have a red-hot metal ring 8 feet in diameter land on your property. They said it took nearly 2 hours to cool down and eventually turn gray. And as you can imagine, people from all over started turning up. And apparently it was selfie central over in the village, with people posing next to the object for a few hours until the authorities arrived. The Kenyan Space Agency, or KSA, were notified and rushed to the scene to secure the object. But given where the object landed, it took them about a day to get there. But villagers were afraid that the object might get stolen, so they worked with local officers to take turns standing guard, lighting a fire nearby overnight. According to the BBC, they wanted to keep away potential scrap dealers and others seeking to make money off of this curiosity. But eventually, KSA did arrive and took possession of the ring. On January 1st, 2025, they released a statement that said in part, "Preliminary assessments indicate that the fallen object is a separation ring from a launch vehicle. Such objects are usually designed to burn up as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, or to fall over unoccupied areas such as oceans. This is an isolated case, which the agency will investigate and address using the established framework under the international space law." Now, the Kenyan Space Agency was established in 2017 to promote, coordinate, and regulate space activities in Kenya. And they actually have launched a number of satellites in cooperation with other space agencies, including the Taifa 1 satellite. This satellite went up in a Falcon 9 rocket in 2023 and was the first satellite launched by KSA, purely developed by Kenyan engineers. But anyway, back to the insanely huge space debris. Now, initially, there was a lot of speculation over what this thing was. That first week, there were articles with predictions all over the place. Jonathan McDowell, who works at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, remember, he's the guy who helped out our friend Alejandro Otero with the batteries that went through his house. He told Inside Outer Space a few days after the crash that there is no obvious space candidate. "I am not convinced it's not from an airplane. Don't see any obvious evidence of re-entry heating." Now, to be fair, this was really early days, so Jonathan might not have been aware of all the eyewitness accounts when he made this statement. But on the other hand, Darren McKnight, a space debris expert at Leo Labs, pointed out that sometimes incoming space debris stays covered by some sacrificial mass that burns up and leaves the raw hardware to re-enter. There was also some speculation that the debris had something to do with an Atlas Centaur launch back in 2004. That rocket body leftover was predicted to re-enter on December 30th with a flight path taking it over Africa. However, Jonathan McDowell said U.S. Space Force data showed the rocket stage re-entered over Lake Baikal in Russia, which is like 10,000 kilometers from Nairobi. Now, there was some concern speculated by the villagers about possible radiation from the object affecting the local population. A resident said, "This is a space object, and we have heard in other similar incidents that there have been effects of radiation affecting even future generations, and there is that fear in this community." However, tests run later by the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority did confirm that while the metal ring did have high levels of radiation, much higher than in the area in which it was found, they were not at levels that are harmful to humans. The KSA director told the BBC that they were lucky that there was no significant damage when the object hurtled to Earth. He said the ultimate responsibility for any damage or injury caused by that space object is on the state in whose jurisdiction that operator may have launched the object. And as I covered in a previous video about Alejandro Otero filing a lawsuit against NASA for the batteries that fell through his house, the laws regarding space debris are covered by the Outer Space Treaty. This is overseen by the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, which says that states shall be liable for damage caused by their space objects. So this begs the question, where did this ring come from? Well, as of today's recording, the consensus seems to be that it came from an Ariane rocket. The BBC showed pictures of the object to the UK Space Agency to get the opinion of its experts. And its launch director, Matt Archer, said the most plausible object it could be is the upper stage separation ring from an Ariane rocket in 2008. The satellites are fine, but the actual rocket body has come through and deorbited. The Ariane was Europe's main rocket launch vehicle, launching more than 230 satellites before it retired in 2023. But if this launch happened in 2008, that means that this upper stage separation ring has been orbiting the Earth for 16 years until it came crashing down into the village of Makuku. What? And I know I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, literally, how many space debris videos have I made by now? But what? But the BBC points out that as the space industry grows, incidents like this may become more frequent. NASA estimates that there are 6,000 tons of space garbage circling our planet right now. And there are many different estimates about the odds of space junk hitting a person. BBC kind of held on to this 1 in 10,000 figure as a common consensus. But when I looked into it, the Aerospace Corporation put the number at more like 1 in a trillion. But I know trying to figure out the odds of this are very complicated. There's a lot of factors and variabilities. And what happened in Makuku is kind of alarming. That is a very large piece of space debris. 8 feet, you guys. 8 feet. I feel like that's the biggest piece of space debris since I started this channel. So I get why the villagers were so alarmed. One of the villagers told the BBC, "We need assurances from the government that this won't happen again." I hear you, but clearly we are at a crossroads where if we don't really have a mechanism to deal with this, the problem is only going to get worse. We are launching stuff, as we all know, at an incredible rate right now. It reminds me of that Kessler Syndrome theory. Have you guys heard of this? Where collisions between orbiting pieces of debris creates more debris, and the amount of debris just keeps growing and growing exponentially, and then eventually it renders near Earth orbit unusable. It's a scary thought. And we do have a stupid number of satellites in orbit right now. But there are a number of companies that have put forth various solutions for our space debris problem. And NASA even put forth a contest in 2023 to come up with a solution for prize money, a la the Lunar Rescue Challenge. But clearly it's an ongoing problem that will need an ongoing solution. So red hot 8-foot rings aren't landing in the backyard of some nice lady, which is crazy. So thanks for the heads up on this story. I had not heard about it. Look at my chat, giving me all the tips. So what do you guys think? Do you think we focus too much on getting ourselves off this planet rather than dealing with the space junk that surrounds it? Or is this just the cost of doing business? Or does Japan have it right? And maybe we should be exploring alternative materials for our spacecrafts, especially satellites. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.